So much for the torn ACL, keeping Bud Dupree from getting paid in free agency. The Tennessee Titans swoop in day one and get Dupree done. Now, I've seen it's a multi-year contract with an annual average of $16.5 million. That doesn't tell me how much is guaranteed. And that doesn't tell me anything beyond the fact that he has a team and that if he's healthy, he'll get paid. But he's going to have to prove himself. And if it's a multi-year deal, chances are it will be a lot like the deal, in some respects, a lot like the deal that Drew Brees did 15 years ago, 2 days ago. 6 years, $60 million, but there was a huge option payment after the first year. If the guy's healthy, the team keeps him. That's better for the team than the one-year deal. Because if you just do the one-year deal, hey, you come back, you prove yourself, you establish yourself, and we got no way to keep you. So I bet that there's some trigger like that, some major bonus year two, that if Bud Dupree's healthy and plays well, the Titans have a device for keeping him around. What was the first thing that came to mind when you saw that deal?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of what you're saying. I think that was one of the more wow deals that went across for me yesterday because I just didn't know. I mean, first off, yeah, he's got a torn ACL that he did in Week 10 of the NFL season. He's not ready right now. He probably won't be totally 100% all cylinders go come training camp or anything like that. So I guess that was one of the shockers of the day. There's no doubt. But, man, I mean, do they need him? Holy cow. How many times did we talk about that last year? They can't rush the passer. They got nobody impressive on their front seven. That's scary. Dupree's a stud. He is an awesome football player when he's healthy. And I didn't think a team would maybe be this aggressive with him right there on the first day of free agency. But when healthy, he fits everything that Mike Vrabel would want for his defense.
Yeah, let's wait for the details, but good for him that he landed so quickly. Danico Autry also to the Titans. What was the first word that came to mind when you saw that?
Well, it's like the New England versatility thing there. Again, there's a lot of similarities with that defense. Dupree can play 3-4 outside linebacker. He can put his hand on the ground and play 4-3 defense end. Danico Autry can play 4-3 defense end, or you can bump him inside and he can play defensive tackle and use athleticism against those guys. So they needed improvements and difference makers and disruptors on their front, and both of these guys are that, and especially Bud Dupree when he's healthy. So good signings by John Robinson and Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, and Jadeveon Clowney most likely won't be back with the Tennessee Titans when you see that investment get made in day one on guys on the outside. Raiders grabbing Yannick Ngakoue on a 2-year deal. First word that came to mind when you saw that.
Well, thank God. I mean, geez, you need a pass rusher. You're going to run that scheme? First off, they've had no pass rusher ever since Gruden's been there. They couldn't sign Khalil Mack because, like what you talked about earlier, in the show. I don't think they had the cold, hard cash to actually pay him. So that they haven't had that guy in the Gruden era. Yannick Ngakoue is a guy that fits exactly perfect with the scheme. He was drafted by Gus Bradley in Jacksonville when Gus was the head coach there. So it makes sense from all, angles here. And it's a team need, a system fit, and $13 million is certainly nothing crazy for a guy coming off the edge trying to be your sack master. And I think the Raiders can certainly swallow that price tag and be happy they got a really good football player in Ngakoue.
Again, Joey Bosa's getting $27 million a year.
13's nothing, right?
They're getting 2 years out of Yannick Ngakoue for less than what the Chargers are paying Joey Bosa for 1 year. And poor Ngakoue, just he never can line it up just right to get that big payday that he earned early in his career with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Leonard Floyd, somehow the Rams. I still have yet to see what the Rams are going to do to get under the cap by tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. 1 p.m. Pacific. It's even earlier for them. They better be working to reduce some of these cap numbers because here's Leonard Floyd on a 4-year, $64 million deal to stay put with the Rams. What was the first thing that came to mind when you saw that?
Well, one of my favorite deals of the day. I mean, first off, this is like, he's Chris Simms all-pro team right here. It's one of my favorite players in football. You talk about like guys who don't get enough notoriety. He'd be like in my Robin Hood, like, take from the rich, give to the poor. This guy, is a special football player. I don't give a damn what his sacks are. He is the king of F the play up, Mike. He's one of those guys on the edge that just way more disruption and value to a defense than the statistics or the stat books or, anything like that can show. So, hey, best defense in football. He can do it all on the edge. He's an awesome football player. Yeah, is he going to be consistently a double-digit sack guy? Probably not. He's probably going to be always in that 7-8 sacks a year range. But it's all the other things he can do too. That was a big move by them. I'm like you, Mike. I just go, how are they going to make this work? What's going to go on here? They're going to have to do some serious movement here over the next 24 hours to get under the cap.
Absolutely. They're going to have to figure it out. There's some restructurings they can do. We had an item over the weekend at PFT identifying all of their guys making $2.5 million or more in salary who would be candidates for a restructuring where you take their salary, reduce it to the minimum, and the rest of it becomes a signing bonus that gets spread over multiple years and creates current year cap space. You're kicking the can. You're asking for trouble later. But the Rams, look at that, $38 million above the cap. They're in the worst position right now. And by the way, you mentioned the Robin Hood catchphrase of robbing from the rich and giving to the poor.
Sure.
It immediately reminded me of something that our friends in the UK and in Ireland watching on Sky Sports surely are aware of. From the old Monty Python's Flying Circus, there was a sketch featuring a gentleman named Dennis Moore who would rob from the poor and give to the rich. Kind of got the whole thing.
What a jerk that guy is.
Yeah. Well, the line was robs from the poor and gives to the rich. Stupid word that rhymes with rich. That was the song from Monty Python's Flying Circus. All right, Romeo Okwara stays in Detroit with his brother. Would have been awkward. Would have been awkward if Okwara had left, given they drafted his brother last year out of Notre Dame. 3-year deal, $39 million. First word that came to mind on that.
Like gritty, tough. He fits exactly like what Dan Campbell would want, I would expect. Again, edge rusher that plays the run well. You can kick him inside every now and then, but I think has the attitude and the kind of style of play where they just go, no, he fits, what we want to do, and that's where I think it makes sense. And again, they're a team too where you just look at them and you go, well, they don't have a lot of difference makers there to begin with. So he's one of the few they got. They didn't have to pay huge money to him. That makes sense. He's got everything else you want, off the field too to go along with it.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I'm pausing here because I got the full Jameis Winston contract.
Okay.
It is a base salary of $5.5 million. Well, a signing bonus of $4.5 million, so he gets that right out of the gates. Base salary of $1 million. Everything else is in the form of incentives. Playing time wins, playoff wins, team achievements, passing yards, completion percentage, yada, 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 with a couple of avoidable years on the back end so they can spread that money out from the signing bonus. So sorry for the deviation there, but I was really curious to see what wins.
Yeah, I hear you.
$5.5 million for a quarterback base salary. I mean, he essentially has the Cam Newton deal with a higher floor and a lower ceiling.
Yeah.
That's essentially what Jameis Winston has in New Orleans. All right, Trey Hendrickson, this one fascinated me because Carl Lawson goes from the Bengals to the Jets for 3 years, $45. Trey Hendrickson, pass rusher, from the Saints to the Bengals, 4 years and $60. My first reaction was, holy crap. This is not what the Bengals do.
No.
They don't throw around money like this, especially on the first day of free agency. What was your thought with Hendrickson going to the Bengals?
Well, it made me think just like right off the bat, how badly did they want Carl Lawson? Did they just lose out on, just an arms race there for cash? Hendrickson's the one guy I'm really intrigued by, in free agency. I mean, yes, he's a real good player. I do look at it a little bit and go, was it a little bit of a flash in the pan type of year where he had this special year? Plays really hard, definitely. There's no doubt about that. We did see him kind of disappear towards the end of the year a little bit too, to where he certainly didn't pop in some of the must-have big moments. But I think that once they lose Carl Lawson, you got Geno Atkins, who's still good, getting up there in years, but it goes to the same thing. There's just not a lot to talk about in the front seven of the Cincinnati Bengals. So, okay, here goes a guy that, fits a role, certainly can be disruptive and come off the edge, and they need some more difference makers on their front seven to go along with it. And it's not a bad, price tag, but more expensive than I guess I was expecting for Trey Hendrickson. I will say that.
6.5 sacks in his first 3 years combined with the Saints. 15.5 sacks last year. The right year to do it. That's the year you parlay it into big money. But, one of the caveats that came to mind when you consider that it was 3 years, $45, for Carl Lawson to go to the Jets, and 4 years, 60, the same rate, $15 million a year for Hendrickson. In free agency, the team that employed the player knows that player better than anyone.
Yes, right.
And when you let him walk away, if you've got $15 million a year budgeted, and I don't know the backstory here, maybe they got caught flat-footed with Carl Lawson and then they panicked. But if they're talking to Lawson and they're talking to Hendrickson and they're willing to go 15 for Hendrickson, but not 15 for Lawson, and someone else swoops in and does it. It's just, I always worry that the new team, is projecting to an extent. What are you relying upon? Like the Patriots. Well, we played him last year. Well, you saw him for 1 week. The team he played for saw him for 17. These guys who are available for a reason. They're available because the team that has employed them, in most cases for multiple years, has decided we're good. We'll go elsewhere, and that's one of the things that always concerns me about free agency.
No, I hear you. And in Lawson, there is a little bit of an injury history and those type of things to go along with it. So maybe there's that aspect. Maybe just though the vision of the Bengals defense is they want a little bit of a different type of guy there. Lawson maybe a pure pass rusher. Hendrickson a little bit more of the pass rusher, plays the run well, does those type of things. But I hear you there. There's definitely some concern there. But, you'd argue that, and I'd balance also, too, with Hendrickson. Just like you said, it's only 1 year. And he was, on maybe the best defensive line in football, or certainly one of the top 3 or 4. So it wasn't like you could, double him and go all over him that way. And the other thing, too, Mike, and I was trying to pull it up as we were sitting here talking, the one thing because I remember seeing yesterday, I thought Hendrickson's deal – they could get out after 1 year, where it could be like a 1 year, $20 million deal. And I got it here. They'd have a little dead money in year 2, but I think they protect themselves a little in that fashion too, to where, Lawson got $33 million guaranteed, right? And that's a little different too.
The idea of getting out of a deal after $20 million for 1 year is not ideal, though. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.